Hi, my name is Jørgen Bjerke. I'm from Oslo Vineyard, and welcome to this video tutorials about how to make multicam video streaming and recording. And why should churches bother with video? Well, first, we want to spread the gospel outside our church, not only inside the church. So by streaming and putting things on the YouTube, we can reach other people. And second, people inside our church who can't attend a meeting, they can still be online and watch the meeting from their place where they are. And third, by putting video on YouTube, we have an archive over our meetings and gatherings and so on, so we can go back and listen to the meeting once again if there's something we don't remember. And fourth, it's fun. Isn't it enough to just have audio? Why should we also take video? Well, first, video is much more modern nowadays. People are used to watching videos on YouTube and their own home videos. So if they're just present with simple audio, it's too boring for people nowadays. And second, we also have body language. So you can now see the speaker and see the body language of the speaker. So that tells more than just words. And third, with video we can also present their PowerPoints and other video and stills and things they also may present during their speeches. Why not just one camera? Why do we have all these other cameras? That's too expensive, isn't it? Well, that's because one camera for half an hour or 1 hour, that is just too boring. We need extra cameras, extra angles. Maybe you use one camera for a close-up of the speaker, another camera for a more wide shot of the whole stage, another camera from the side maybe, and maybe just one camera on the balcony or something high above and behind so we see the whole meeting hall. In that way you can spice it all up so it's not too boring to watch. If you have a computer, it's a nice thing to include that into the stream, because the computer will output lyrics from the worship maybe, or PowerPoints from the speaker, maybe some videos or stills that the speaker will show. So why not take that output from the computer into your video switcher? Sound. We want two things, that's two important things with sound. That is, we want to hear the speaker's clear voice.
And this Sunday he came to church and he didn't look well. He had fall on the ice.
Because we want to hear what he or she is saying. And we also want atmosphere.
This story happened some months ago. A father has been coming to the church.
Like the ambient sound from the hall. We want to hear the audience applaud or laugh or something like that. We want to be there, feel like we are there, all together with them. So then we use one source from the audio mixer, the PA mixer, just directly connected into the system, and also we use the internal mic of one of the cameras to take the ambient sound.
Ida is leading the volunteers. She is from Oslo. You can't hear that because she is the best import we have had to Norway since Volvo, I think. So, a great lady, and she's leading the volunteers. So, here we go.
Yes, hello everyone. As Ole Petter already mentioned, I am responsible for the volunteers.
Ida is leading the volunteers. She is from Oslo. You can't hear that.
Free, take her,
yes, best import we have had to Norway since Volvo, I think.
And keep that shot.
So, a great lady, and she's leading the volunteers.
The producer's role is to direct everything. He or she sees all the cameras and can see what they're shooting and tell them what to shoot, and then switch between them. And here in the control room, I have all the cameras into a switcher. This is my switcher. It's a Blackmagic design, very cheap, all digital HD switcher. It has no buttons, so you remote control it from a computer, either Windows-based or Mac-based. You connect all the cameras here, and then you can connect each output. I have a multi-view preview output, so I can watch all the cameras here, and also what I will record or stream. In my setup, I have chosen to use a Mac to remote control the switcher. So this is the software that comes with the switcher. So I choose the next camera just by pushing a button here. Let's say camera 3, that's the next camera. And I just hit the space to actually take that camera. And you see the result here. And maybe 5 is the next camera. I just choose 5 there and hit space to take that camera out for recording and streaming. And over here I have a Windows computer. And it has to be Windows because this is the streaming software. And the streaming software only works on Windows, unfortunately. The switcher can actually output a ready-made streaming signal from USB. So I have a USB connected directly into this computer. And I have this software called MX Lite that will take that stream from the switcher and output it to Ustream. So how you set this up, you have to check on that site and the help videos they may have. And also with this computer, I also launch just a standard Internet Explorer or whatever, Chrome, Firefox, whatever you have, and go to that site where you have the stream. So you can just watch and see if everything is okay. We are offline now. In the middle here, I have a microphone. It could be all kinds of microphones. So I can speak to the camera people. And there are different types of how you can transmit that signal to the camera people. So I will take that in another video. And you also want to hear what's happening in this control room. Probably you will have a TV screen with audio included, because all these TV screens just have HDMI input from the switcher. So we will hear the audio from the TV screen. And I will use this Mac to also do the recording. I can record actually directly into this switcher software, just hitting the record button here. And it will record in a very high quality. So if the stream has to be a very low quality because of your upload bandwidth, you can record with a much better quality and then upload that to YouTube afterwards. Copyright, that's an interesting issue because that's a thing many people just don't bother with. They upload music to YouTube, they stream music they have not composed or made themselves, and that is actually not legal. And many of the persons who make music, they do it for a living, and they want to have paid each time you play their music, actually in your meeting hall, but also especially online on the internet, where there are lots of more audience to watch. And that could be lots of work to do all these copyright thing. And we have organizations. We have Tono in Norway, Steam in Sweden, and Koda in Denmark that takes care of all these for you. So all you have to do is pay them a fee, a license, and then they will make sure that all the composers, all the songwriters will get what they need. So just be aware of that. When the license is okay, then you have to upload that approval to Ustream or whatever streaming service you use, or maybe YouTube as well, so they don't ban your video because it's copyrighted stuff there. Now, this is probably the most important chapter in this course, because if we do this wrong, someone might be killed. No, this is not a bad joke, just to draw your attention. I'm serious. I'm talking about shooting people you don't have any agreement with. To say it shortly, shoot only people on the stage. The speaker, the worship band, the person who's giving the messages, and the leader, and so on. Do not shoot people in the audience. You could, of course, shoot them from behind or as a wide shot from the balcony or something, but do not shoot people that can be recognized. Because some people, they don't like to be online, they just don't feel comfortable by being online on the internet. And for some people, it's about life and death, because some people come from cultures and religions that has death penalty for converting to Christianity. And they certainly do not want to be seen together with Christian people in a Christian meeting. Make sure that all the people on the stage are very well informed that they are being streamed or recorded for the internet. Make also sure that all the speakers are okay with putting their teaching online. Some will maybe say that it's okay to be streamed but not to be recorded. And some people may come from a mission field where it's illegal to spread the gospel, and they probably do not want to be put online. After the teaching, it could be a personal prophecy from the stage. Be careful with that. Keep the personal personally. So usually cut the stream, cut the recording after the teaching. Terminology. When the producer wants a certain kind of framing a picture, he or she wants to use a very specific, clear language to the camera people, so they know exactly what to give the producer. So here, some terminology. From this to this, or the picture you see now, is a medium close-up. It's called medium close-up. And this is the mid shot. It's from the belt and up, and keeps some air above the head. It's not necessary to squeeze the head or cut the hair off. So some air above the head. And this is the wide shot. It's from the feet and all up to the head, and still keeps some air above the head. And this is called a two-shot. Two people in the same frame. So when the producer says a two-shot of the musicians, two-shot of the leader and the teacher maybe, this is what the producer wants. And this is called zooming. Zoom in and zoom out. And this is called panning. Now the camera is panning left. And now the camera is panning right. And this is called tilting. Tilting up and tilting down. If the speaker turns his head or her head to the side, it's important to have enough air in the front of the sides. And this is cheesy. It looks like the speaker is about to walk out of the frame. So this is much better, to have the air in front of them. So if the speaker turns around, the camera should also pan a little bit to get the air in front. But of course, if the speaker goes like this all the time, it's too tiresome to just move back and forth with the camera. So then you just place the speaker in the middle. I think that's much better. The producer can speak to the camera people, but the camera people cannot speak back to the producer. But they can do three things. They can say yes with the camera, or they can say no, and they can say, I don't know anything. Can you say what I'm going to do? And please do not do this when you're on air. When you shoot people, this is a very common mistake, placing the head exactly in the middle of the frame. So this is the amateur way. But it's much better to do it like this. You get more of the body and less of the uninteresting air above the head. And this is called the rule of third. You can imagine dividing the picture in exactly 3 vertical parts and 3 horizontal parts. And then you place interesting and important things into the lines that divide those parts, like the eyes. Or if there are 2 people in the shot, you place the 2 people in the rule of thirds. HD or SD? Well, what is HD? HD is high definition. That's a new TV standard that came 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And that is the world, what the world now is very used to. It's a much higher resolution of the TV screen. So SD, that's this old standard definition, that's too old now, after my opinion. And besides, you need cameras that can output digital. And you won't find any cameras that can output digital SD. But digital HD, that's very easy to find. Cheap amateur cameras. So why digital then? Because here I have a video switcher. is from Blackmagic, and it's very cheap. It will cost 7,000 or 8,000 Norwegian kroner, and it has all digital inputs. And if you want to choose an analog video switcher, it will cost a lot more and give you a lot less quality. So I will absolutely recommend this video switcher. And for camera, this is a cheap amateur camera. It could be any brand actually, but this is a Sony camera. It's very good actually. And here you have HDMI output. So you just connect the camera output from the camera to HDMI and connect the HDMI to the switcher, like this. The problem is HDMI cables cannot be longer than about 5 or 10 meters, 5 meters maximum. So this camera has to be very close to the switcher, and that's unnatural. But then we use another digital signal. It's called SDI, Serial Digital Interface. And these standards use this cable here. It's a coax cable, mostly green, with the circle jack here. And this cable can transport digital video several hundred meters. So this is my absolutely recommendation for digital video. Then you have to convert this signal, this HDMI signal, to SDI. And then you use a box like this. This is an HDMI to SDI converter. So you just connect the HDMI in one side and turn it on, and the SDI jack on the other side. This is converter has a battery, but it should maybe use an external power here, because the battery will last for only 2 hours. So now I can transport digital video several hundred meters to the switcher and connect the other end of this green cable to the switcher. Because this switcher has both HDMI inputs and also SDI inputs. Like this. As you can see here, the Blackmagic video switcher can take several video formats. So what are the difference between all of them? Well, there are 3 aspects. You have frame rates. That is how many frames per second, how many pictures in the video per second. In Europe, we have 25 and 50. In North America and Japan, you have almost 30 and almost 60. And in film, the cinema theater, you have 24. And then you have resolution, how many pixels vertically and how many pixels horizontally. And in HD, you have at least 2 different standards. You have the so-called 720, that is 720 lines and 1280 pixels wide. And then you have the full HD, that is called 1080, that is 1080 pixels vertically and 1920 pixels wide. So the higher, the better. And also the higher, it's more difficult to transmit on the internet. And the last is progressive or interlaced. Well, what is interlaced? That is a very old invention from the TV's childhood, because they wanted to transmit 50 or 60 pictures each second to have a smooth movement. But that was too much. They couldn't transmit that much pictures. So they had to compress. So what they did, they took a pair of 2 pictures and interlaced them together, each even and odd lines. So the odd lines was the first picture, and the even lines was a picture 1/50 second later. And when it came to the TV screen took them apart and first showed the odd lines, and 1/50 second later it showed the even lines. This standard has survived all up today. So still today we have interlaced HD, and it's very common for consumer cameras to record in 1080 interlaced. Interlaced is very nice on TV screens, but not on computer screens, because computer screens are progressive. Progressive is when you show all the lines at the same time. So what you don't want is to record interlaced to show on a computer, that is on internet. So if you record with an 1080 interlaced, you have to remove each other line. If not, it will look like stripes. Well, of course, there are also progressive cameras. The most common is the 720 progressive. It's called 720p50 because it's 50 progressive frames each second. And this is my recommendation. You could, of course, use 1080p25, that is 25 progressive frames each second. But unfortunately, the Blackmagic switcher can't handle that format yet. 720p50 is also too much for internet. 50 frames per second is also too much for internet nowadays. So you have to compress that down to p25. But 720p25 is also not one of the standards of the Blackmagic switcher. So just as a compromise, choose 720p50 for all the cameras and 720p50 on the Blackmagic switcher, and then compress to p25 later on when uploading to YouTube or streaming. There are also a standard called 1080p50, that is 50 progressive frames each second in full HD. And many consumer cameras already have that, but that's a standard far beyond internet video. Even if the camera can record in 720p50 or 1080i or whatever, it may not output that standard on the HDMI output of the camera. But you can, in some cameras, you can alter that in the menu. You have one menu for the recording standard and another menu for the output standard. Some cameras don't have that two-fold menu, so the camera will output whatever you record, and other cameras will always output the same standard whatever you record. So you have to make sure that the output of the HDMI or the SDI output of the camera can output what you want to use in your standard. And now the easiest way of how we can connect everything together with just one camera. Camera with HDMI output, like here. And as I said before, HDMI can only be short, so about 5 meter maximum. This is about 1.5 meters or so, into some kind of box that can convert the HDMI signal to a computer signal. This is a Blackmagic design intensity shuttle, and it comes in two versions, one with a Thunderbolt version for Mac. So then you need a quite new Mac. If you're watching this video in 2013-14, it's a quite new Mac than you need with Thunderbolt. And there's also a USB 3 version of this box for quite new, modern Windows PC. If you have a stationary PC or Mac, there are also cards you can insert to the computer. And then in here, there are bundled a software. For this box, it's called Media Express. It's a recorder. So it records me now. Hello. And you see the audio here and the record button. And how you use this software, you should visit blackmagicdesign.com. And with this software, you can also play back video you have recorded. If you want to stream directly without record, or maybe record as well, you have to actually shut this off. You can't both use this Media Express and the streaming software simultaneously. But then I will recommend a software called Flash Media Live Encoder from Adobe. It actually converts directly to H.264, which is the best codec for internet nowadays, directly in real time. But that's a very hard process, so you need a very quick computer. This quite new Macintosh laptop is actually about maybe fast enough. So you just set everything up, read from Adobe's home site if you want to learn how to use this software. I won't go into detail here. And you need an account at Ustream, for example, and you just put in some codes you get from Ustream in here, so this software knows where to output the stream. You can also record here in the same quality as your stream in H.264. And this recorded version you could upload to YouTube if you want. Or you can just record and not stream at all, and then upload that recorded version to YouTube. Because if you use the other software, Media Express, you can only record in very high quality. It's an almost lossless codec, so it will be huge files. 1 hour will be about 30 gigabytes or so. And that will take weeks if you upload that to YouTube. So you want to compress that even more after the recording. And then you can use a lot of different freeware that can compress videos. You have MPEG Stream Clip for Mac maybe. If you have an edit software like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro, there are software bundled with that, like this Adobe Media Encoder for bundled with Premiere. So you can just insert your recording here and compress it down to about 10 megabits per second, H.264. That's pretty huge, but not that huge, and it's manageable for YouTube. You need to upload a quite good quality to YouTube because YouTube is compressing the video one more time. But of course, not that huge quality because that will take weeks to upload. To have the signal from the camera to the switcher, we have different solutions. And analog is just out of speech because analog is so yesterday, of course. And digital is much easier actually to do now. So digital signal from a camera to the switcher. We have this HDMI cable. You may have seen it before because that's the ordinary cable you have to your modern TV. The problem with HDMI is the length. You cannot have more than 5 to 10 meters of HDMI. And then the signal will just drop and be so weak that the switcher will not recognize the signal at all. And the cameras will, of course, be more than 5 or 10 meters away from the switcher. So then we have different solutions. We could transform the signal to another kind of signal that will actually live longer. So we have here a solution, an HDMI to ordinary network cables, CAT cables. And these boxes need power, so just plug the power in here. And you have HDMI from the camera into a box near the camera, and then you can have maybe 100 meters of these two pairs. It has to be two, actually, two network cables. And in the other end, you connect another HDMI cable, a short one, and connect that to the switcher. We have tried this, and it didn't work. We don't know why. But I also read online on the internet that people have problems with this solution. It could be solved if you have a very expensive box or if you have very expensive cables. Well, we don't know. So it's cheap, so go ahead and experience and try different boxes if you want, because this is a cheaper solution. The box doesn't cost much, the cable is very cheap. But we ended up in Vineyard Norden with using this kind of cable. It's called SDI. The signal is called SDI, Serial Digital Interface. And it uses these green, very stiff coax cables with a B and C plug in each end. And this is a cable for both analog video and also digital video. And it brings the signal more than 100 or 200 meters without any problem. And the switcher we are using actually has SDI inputs. So we can actually take the SDI directly from a camera that has SDI to the switcher with this small little cable. Be aware this cable is very fragile. You can't step on it, so if you have to cross the hall, you have to put it in some kind of tube or something to protect it. But cameras with SDI output is very expensive. Think about 20,000, 30,000 Norwegian kroner. So we have some solution. And that is a box, a converter box that converts from HDMI to SDI. So you just connect from the camera with HDMI. That's a cheap camera. Almost the most of the cameras nowadays, amateur cameras, have HDMI out. Connect that to the HDMI to SDI converter and plug the SDI jack on the other side. This box has battery power, so it doesn't need external power. But the battery will last for 2 hours, so probably it's a good idea to have the external power as well. But of course, if someone steps on the power, you have the battery. This box will cost about 2,500 or so Norwegian kroner, so it's quite expensive. The cables is more expensive than the network cable, but not that much expensive. And you can actually use used old cables. Like this one, it was meant for analog video, but it works very well with digital as well. So then you just need one converter at the start, at the camera, and just plug the other end of this cable directly to the switcher. How to choose a camera for this system? You can use whatever cheap HD camera you can get, actually, but it has to be 3 things on that camera. It has to be a HDMI output, or of course SDI if you can afford that, but that will be much more expensive. But HDI, most cameras nowadays has that. And it should have a remote jack for the zoom. Let me show you. I have here a remote control for just the zoom that you attach to the tripod. And then this cable goes to the camera. And then you can use this to zoom in and out with the camera at the same time as adjusting the tilt and pan. So you don't have to have one hand on the tripod and another hand on this zoom. The third thing is that the camera has to output 720p 50. That's the HD standard, the lower HD standard. It could output 1080p, but the Blackmagic switcher can't take 1080p. It's only 1080 interlaced high. But 720p 50, that's a standard that the switcher can take. So if the camera can output 720p 50, that is the best thing. It may have a setting here for recording 720p, but it may not output that on the HDMI jack. So you have to be sure that it actually outputs 720p on the HDMI. Not all cameras do that. They may output 1080i and record in 720p. This is a very nice switcher. I'm not bought from Blackmagic to say this, but Blackmagic Design has made this nice and cheap switcher. It's all digital and all HD, high definition. It has 4 input with HDMI and 4 with SDI. But input 3 and 4 here share the same input as 3 and 4 here on the SDI. So you can have 6 simultaneously sources. And they have some outputs here. So you connect, if you have a camera close by the switcher, you can use HDMI, or if you use the HDMI to network cable and network back to HDMI at the control room, you can use these HDMI plugs. Or if you use SDI, you just plug the SDI cables into the inputs here. And then of course you have the power cable in there. And then for the outputs, you have two outputs. We have a multi-view output that will show you all the cameras and the preview of the next camera and program of what's actually on the air right now. So then you can just connect that to an ordinary TV or computer monitor that supports HDMI. And then we have a program, HDMI, which outputs the result, the full quality result of what you are switching. You also have full quality SDI outputs here, two of them actually. And you also have a multi-view SDI output. You control this switcher by a network cable. So we have to connect a network cable in here. And this network cable can actually be connected directly to your computer. That's the easiest way. Or you can connect it through some kind of router, wireless router, whatever. So you can connect this into a lot of other computers. You can actually place this switcher in Norway and then go all the way to Australia and switch from there if you want, because it uses internet or this network. It is a little bit tricky to configure this network controlling, so you just have to follow the instruction from this switcher. It also has digital input here. If you have digital audio from a coax cable with a BNC plug this in here. It's called AES EBU. But we don't use that. In here we use the audio directly from the cameras, because these cables, or these HDMI cables, can also transport audio in the same cable. So we just put the audio into the cameras, and then we have both video and audio with the same cable. So we don't need an external audio mixer. And finally, we can output a ready-made internet streaming from this switcher through USB. So this just connect to a PC or Mac or whatever, and you can stream. The problem now is that the only way to stream out of this to Ustream is by a software called MX Lite, and it's a software only for Windows. But maybe Blackmagic will come with a new software, an old software maybe, that could take this stream and output to whatever. This is another box I will recommend. It's the same company, Blackmagic Design, and it's a box that can take HDMI in here and also analog video, SD or HD, and convert it to a computer signal, either through Thunderbolt to a Mac or USB 3 to a Windows computer. And it's two different versions, so this version is a Thunderbolt version. So I can use this to a Mac. With this box, I can actually take the HDMI output of the switcher, the program outputs, into this box, and then record the signal with a Mac in full quality. Because if I want to stream, I stream out a low quality through this USB. The switcher actually has a compressor, can compress the signal down to a stream version, which is very low quality compared to what you can get with this box. So this one is used for streaming, low quality, and this one, combined with the program out here, you can use for recording, because you want to record in a much higher quality and then upload that to YouTube. This box also has an HDMI output and analog outputs here. So usually you use HDMI out directly connected to a TV screen, so you can see and listen to what the switcher makes. But if the screen doesn't have any audio, perhaps you use a computer monitor, you can use the analog output here, ordinary phono plugs, and connect that to a speaker. Communications with the camera from the producer. The producer needs to say exact things to the cameras, and then we have some equipment to do that. What I would recommend is this system here. We have a transmitter and receiver, or receivers, You can have as many as you want of these headphones, wireless headphones, and you can buy it at any electronic store, almost, I think. It's cheap and it's easy to use. You just connect this to your microphone, and then you can have as many as you want as this. But the problem is, of course, is battery, so you can run out of batteries. Another problem is that you have some interference, could have some interference from other signals because it's a radio frequency. And another thing is that most of these headphones are not closed, so people sitting nearby the camera can actually hear the producer. And the camera person may not hear the producer because it's so much noise coming from the stage directly through here, because it's not closed. But it's cheap and it's easy. And then if you can't use a wireless system because maybe there's too much interference, or maybe there are translation systems that use the same frequencies, you can have a wire system. I have here just an ordinary auxiliary cable, a mini jack cable, and a mini jack to big jack if you want, connected together with your video cable. Just use some tape here. And this audio cable has to be as long as the video cable, of course. So maybe you have to extend the cable just by several auxiliary cables with a female in one end and male in the other end, so you can extend the cable. And then you need a box like this. This is a headphone distributor where you have one input and several outputs, because you can't use a Y connection where you connect just the output of your microphone and then just passive transmit all to every headphones, because then you will have distorted sound or very low volume on the sound. You need active distribution actually, and this box will cost you about 2,000 Norwegian kroner, so it's a bit expensive. But of course the benefit is you have a completely closed system. There's no interference at all. There's no battery that can run out. And you have a very high quality because you can connect whatever you want as a headphone to this system. You can connect a closed headphones, and you can hear a very clear voice from the producer. The producer needs a microphone, of course. This is an ordinary microphone with a cable, with a jack or whatever you need actually. But the problem with this is the level, the sound level, the audio level is too low. You can connect this directly to a headphone distributor or this wireless system. You need to amplify the sound. So you can use an audio mixer maybe as an amplifier, or there actually are dedicated boxes. You can buy this cheap at any electronic store that just amplifies your microphone to a higher level that you can use to the wireless system or this wire system. Or you can actually use a camera. If you have a video camera or some kind of audio recorder, I have here an audio recorder with a microphone. So then you can use the headphone jack out of that camera or audio recorder, because the headphone jack transmits a very much higher level audio. So then you can feed that directly to the system, to the wireless system or the wire system. If you want to stream to another room, another floor, let's say a children's room or whatever room you have in your church, you don't have to stream through Ustream or something. You can just use the output of the switcher. But this time you have to use an SDI cable, because I guess your second room will be more than 5 meters away. So you have to connect the SDI cable to an SDI program output. There are 2 program SDI outputs of the switcher. And then stretch the cable to the second room, and then you need to have a SDI to HDMI converter Then connect the HDMI cable out of that box to the TV screen. Now let's take a look at how we connect everything together. First, you place all the cameras. In this example, I have 3 cameras. And let's say all the cameras are HDMI only. Then you put the HDMI cables out of the cameras to an HDMI to SDI converters. Like this one, for example. HDMI plug into one end and SDI on the other end. Well, SDI is actually the name of the signal, not the plug. The plug is called B and C, and the cable is called coax, but the signal is called SDI. And then take all the SDI cables, the coax cables, down to the switcher. Sound. Take the output of the audio from the PA sound, the XLR cable from the PA sound to one of the camera's XLR inputs. So you need XLR input on at least one of the cameras. In this way you can have the clear voice of the speaker. And you also need the ambient sound, so take the camera mic, the internal camera mic of one of the other cameras, and use that as the other audio source. Both the sound and the video will get through the HDMI and SDI cables down to the switcher, and the switcher will have internal mixer for audio. Then you need to remote control the switcher. This is used by a network cable, a Cat5 or Cat6 cable, connected to an ordinary computer, Windows or Mac based. And then you take the HDMI output of the multi-view output of the switcher to a TV screen or a computer monitor. And this will show you all the cameras and the preview and program output. But it will not output any sound. You need to use the program output of the switcher to another TV screen with speakers, so you can listen to the sound as well. And in this way you can have a full quality, full screen view of the program output. Alternatively, you can skip this and use a HDMI output of the program output to a box that can convert the HDMI signal to a computer signal, like this Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle. There are 2 versions of this, one for USB 3 and one for Thunderbolt. And this box also has a HDMI output, so you can loop out the signal to a monitor to view and listen. And then you can use the USB 3 or Thunderbolt output of the box to the same computer. And then you can use this computer as a recording machine. And this will record in full quality out of the switcher. And then you also need to stream, I guess. So then you can use the USB cable out of the switcher to a Windows PC, and it has to be Windows PC because the streaming software is only for Windows. And with this USB cable you have a already made internet ready video stream, H.264 compressed video, ready for outputting on the internet. You could of course also use this computer to record what you are streaming. But remember, streaming is probably a very low quality because of your upload bandwidth, and you cannot record in one quality and stream in another. And that's why I use the other Thunderbolt version and another computer to record in a much higher quality and stream in a lower quality. So you can use the high quality to upload to YouTube afterwards. But if you use this computer to record the stream, you don't need the other computer and you don't need the Intensity Shuttle box. So this is the workflow for audio and video from the cameras and the PI mixer to the switcher and down to recording and streaming. So now let's take a look at communication with the camera people. You need a microphone or preferably you can use a video camera or an audio recorder with headphone outputs. If you use an ordinary microphone, you need a microphone amplifier of some sort. And if you use a video camera with a headphone output, you don't need this box. Then you need to feed the audio into either a wireless system or a wire system. And then you need a headphone distributor box like this one from Kramer. So if you use the Kramer box, you output each cable to each camera, and preferably use auxiliary cables, the one with mini jack male in one end and mini jack female in the other end, auxiliary extension cables. And the Kramer box use a big jack, so you have to use an adapter from mini jack to big jack. And then you can use these cables together with the video cables, twisted together with tape or something. And in the other end, with the cameras, you connect them to ordinary headphones with this mini jack female. And then you probably want to output the video to a secondary room, like the children's room or something. And I guess the room is more than 5 meters away, so here you need an SDI cable. And then you need to convert that SDI to HDMI and output the HDMI to an ordinary TV screen. And here you will get audio as well. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed these video tutorials. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact me on this email here. If you want to go into details of each hardware and software, you have to go to each hardware and software's home site and search for help there. So, good luck!